Canes fans, I got to tell you about our great new sponsor. Listen, we all love placing a bet here and there, right? But is there anything sweeter than winning a bet when it's against your friends? Against the people you know, you get one up on them? Man, and the thing about it is you can bet with your friends on anything. You can bet with them on the Oscars, on sports, whatever it is. And that's what our new sponsor allows you to do. Let me tell you about Cut. That's Kutt, Cut. The Cut app is a peer-to-peer social betting platform. It's legal in 40-plus states. Cut has customizable odds, tracking capabilities, an entire social network with group chats, user profiles, and rewards. All payments, no need for Venmo or anything like that. Listen, you can bet on anything on Cut. You want to bet your friend that the two of you are going to have a 40-yard... Wait a minute, that's not something I would ever do. But you could do it on Cut. That's right. Listen, log on to Cut right now and use our promo code BelieveMiami. That's BLEAV Miami for a 10% welcome deposit bonus. Don't forget that promo code. It's BelieveMiami. BLEAV Miami. Do it now. Get on there. Get on to Cut and bet your friends about anything. It's a blast. Welcome back, everyone, to the Real Ones Canes podcast. What is up? It is spring football time. I'm the Beast, Brian London. He is Brandon O'Doy. Please go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the podcast, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever it is. And please go hit up the YouTube channel so you can see our pretty faces, because our faces are so pretty. Well, at least Brandon's is. But, regardless, we're good to go. But, Brandon, also, I need to mention... across the Believe network, which distributes our podcast, we do all have a new sponsor named Cut. Go check it out in the description. Go check out the people at Cut. It's a gambling website where you can wager against your friends on anything. So if I wanted to bet you that I could run a faster 40 than you, I could do that on Cut. Now, that would be a bad bet on my part, because unless we're talking, giving me an hour or two to finish the 40 yards, that's not happening. But we can do all those crazy things on Cut, so go check it out and use code BelieveMiami for the special. Meanwhile, what's special is that spring practice has started and Cam Ward looks special. All of the notes out of camp are Cam Ward looks like an honest-to-goodness quarterback.
Yeah, no, and this is why the juice was worth the squeeze, Beast. I mean, you waited for this young man to come into camp. There was a lot of procrastination on his part. They were very deliberate, his camp, about making the decision whether to go pro or to come to Miami. We felt like Miami might be in the running, but it looked like we lost out to the NFL, and he might be the first player to ever flip back from the NFL to college football, and it looks like it's paying off. One of his requirements, and we talked about this on this podcast, Beast, and it was something that was probably exclusive to us, is he wanted Xavier Restrepo to be in. And that's why shortly after the Rutgers Bowl game, you saw a PR move by the University of Miami to ensure that everybody knew that Xavier Restrepo was going to come back. Many people felt like he had done enough and built up an NFL resume and could get some consideration in the draftable rounds 1 through 7 to go to the next level. But Cam Ward wanted to ensure that Restrepo would be here. And the viral catch that you saw all over the internet in Canes Nation is exactly why he wanted. There are very few people, Beast, who could have made that catch. That coverage was so good. There's nothing you can do. And did you see the defensive back transfer from Washington get up in absolute disbelief that ball was not only thrown in the only pace it could have been, but it was caught by Xavier Restrepo.
Yeah, if you go check out the Canes football Twitter, you'll find the highlight. But basically, it's going deep into the end zone. Restrepo's streaking down the field. He kind of makes a move to the right, but has to adjust on the ball and come back left and dives for it and makes his catch. And you're right. That's the only place.
Over his shoulder.
Yeah, and that was the only place the ball could be placed. and Restrepo caught up to it and made just an unbelievable, sensational grab. So let's talk about this because um, I've been reading everything, listening to everything, talking to people. It's not just you have Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo, right? But you have Cam Ward, you have Reese Poffenbarger, who's looked solid as a guy that could be the backup. Emery's already back, right, from the broken left shoulder or whatever he had going on. He's already back. He's looking good.
I was wrong. He's
Yep,
back. I was
yep,
wrong.
he's back. We haven't heard much on Jakari, but he's out there. And Judd, the freshman, is there. He looks huge. He's towering at 6'7". He's a big boy. He'll probably redshirt, but everyone's been talking about how good and how deep this quarterback room is, and also talking about especially the starting wide receivers, who we think it's going to be, Jacoby George, Xavier Restrepo, and Isaiah Horton, plus all the other guys that want to get some run. This offensive system, you just hope that Shannon Dawson calls the right plays.
Well, he'll call a lot better plays with a lot better players, and principally at the quarterback position. This is why all the Cam Ward hubbub. This is why he got everything he's earning. It doesn't matter how much he's earning NIL. He's gonna earn it, and you just hope he's healthy. But the biggest thing with Cam is ball control and being able to hold on to the football. So that's one of the things that he's gonna wow you with these throws. He's gonna wow you with his athleticism. Quarterbacking is about decision making, and so we're not gonna get a real test of that until we see the spring game, and then until we see the Hurricanes go to Gainesville. But there's a lot of early buzz. There's a lot of early hype, and that's good. You want that in a program, especially when it's kind of do or die. And I don't want to say this is a show and prove year for Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes, but it is kind of. And I say kind of because he's not going to get fired,
right?
But you don't want to do 7-5, 8-4 again, and have people be like, "Well, this feels like stuff we've kind of seen. This was supposed to go like to another place."
So, I think there's some great signs about this team coming together as good as you can get in the spring, which is not that great, right? Like you said, it's really going to come down to not just the spring game, but the fall heading into Gainesville. But Cam Ward comes in and he's already taking the linemen out for dinner, which he can afford to do with that NIL money, right?
I'm sure he can afford breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but that's a whole other conversation.
But they're already bonding. He's already become a leader. He's already bonded with the receivers. So doing all the right things off the field. On the field, though, and this is the kind of the one negative as it relates to Cam Ward, is he fumbled the ball a lot at Washington State. And listen, whether I believe him or not, it doesn't matter. But Shannon Dawson, says, "Hey, I went back, I watched every fumble, and yeah, we got to work on it. But it's something that can be. It's not something I'm overly worried about. We can correct what's going on there."
Yeah, I think that in Washington State, he had to make plays because he probably didn't have a third of the playmakers he's going to now play with. I think he can relax. He's got really talented running backs: Henry Parrish, Mark Walton,
Mark Fletcher.
Yeah.
You said Mark Walton. Yeah.
Okay. He's also, thank God he's a Cane, but
yeah.
The Mark's kind of, I've been doing this too long. Mark Fletcher, Henry Parrish, Jordan Lyle's not even on campus. Trevante Citizen seems to be coming back. There's just a bevy of people to give the ball to out of the backfield. Your boy Arroyo seems to be getting some burn. Like, strange to me that he's one of the guys that talks.
He says
first day of spring practice.
He said he finally
for a guy that didn't do anything last year.
He said he finally felt like Elijah Arroyo. I'm stoked, man. I'm excited about that kid.
That's rat poisoning to me. I don't talk about him in any serious. Like, I've done as much at Miami as.
Come on.
No. I mean, he caught a touchdown 2 years ago.
Got
And
hurt.
there hasn't. Okay, so there's been nothing. There's no there. Like I'm not gonna like trotting him out the first day of spring ball was just like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Let's talk to people who are making plays. But at the end of the day, if he becomes what everybody thinks he is and what everybody expects him to be, that's good. I'm actually pro him becoming what the hype is because Miami could use that third element because these first two elements, really the first three, in the quarterback, the wide receivers, the running backs, they look great. I mean, there's all kinds of positives around Restrepo. I think he's a known commodity. They're saying great things about, Josiah Trader, the talented freshman, All American. Um, One of the freshmen who's expected to contribute is not even there yet. Every indication is that Isaiah Horton is more focused, and he's having a good spring so far in these first couple of practices. And at the end of the day, the offense wasn't even really that big of a concern so much. And now you're bolstering it. You know what I mean? So it's like if we can figure out if this line play is going to stand out, and I know people are freaking out about, you know, Louis Cristobal and all this other stuff. Like, calm down, guys. Like, they feel very good about this offensive line as a coaching staff. And I think, man, like the sky's the limit, but it's like you've got to put that all together. And one thing I like about Cam and one thing I've been told about what he's doing is taking leadership. And some of the things they're willing to talk about are how he's like taking the guys out to eat and doing all these things. And then on the defensive side, my understanding is that Ruben Bain is kind of creating a football first culture. And so they're changing the culture at the University of Miami in the football program, and leaders are stepping up, and these are the guys who are the better players. For so long under these past coaching staffs, players who led the team were not actually the best players. You had guys that were like really influential on the team, and they didn't play, and that was really bad. And so it's a situation where they were just the most popular guys, and that can get your team in a lot of trouble. When your best players are your best leaders, and everybody in football and across any sport, any level of the sport will tell you, you're gonna have success.
You know, we'll get to the defense as a whole in a second, but Ruben Bain, you mentioned him. I apologize for the dog. The trash man's outside. But Ruben Bain has gotten himself in better shape, which is crazy
Looks
because
amazing.
he was already a menace, but now he's gotten himself to the point where he could probably play more plays, be out there longer, have more impact, which is scary to think about. But what my point is, it's you could be a leader if you're willing to work like that kid is working.
Yeah, and I think he played a lot. They very rarely took him out, but what you saw, he got gassed a lot in pursuit of the football, and he was more effective when they had a higher rotation. But when they had to put him in late in the season because attrition, he started to get gassed, especially running all around. I think with him dropping weight and becoming more, in shape, he looks more ripped, more cut, which means he's dropped body fat. He's just going to be able to play longer, and play faster for longer, and that's scary because he was a dude. And if he's any stronger than he was last year, I mean, again, these are scary things.
I just want to real quick before we go total to the other side of the football on the offense. People are worried at who's starting at what offensive line position in the second spring practice. Oh, the nephew's taking snaps at left guard on the first team. Listen. Can I just tell you something? Whatever five guys are out there right now, in the going on the third practice of spring practice, that's not what the starting lineup is going to be come game one against the Gators. So just relax. There's no reason to get overly crazy about the second spring practice.
Well, let's say this to those who aren't as well versed in how football works. In the spring, there's a lot of attrition, and much of your class, some of your freshman class is in, but much of your freshman class is not. And you get some guys like there's a big offensive tackle from the JUCO ranks. He was one of the top JUCO recruits that Miami brought in. He's like 6'8" or something crazy like that. He got some burn, and you saw a lot of videos of him. they're trying some things out, and this is the time when the roster is at its lowest. Okay, and there are going to be some people playing positions that are not going to be factors when it comes time to the fall when everybody's here. Okay, now you're going to see a lot of that in the spring, but it's still important for those guys to get reps because you never know what's going to happen in the fall, and you want competitive depth. Now, if you see people out here who may have had a bad bowl game or done some other things, that's fine. It's no reason to panic. A lot of times, and right now, there are only 3 scholarship quarterbacks that are healthy that are taking reps. So there are a lot of things that are wait and see, and there are some places that are going to be bolstered. And there's going to be some movement on this roster because right now, the Hurricanes, from my understanding, are over the scholarship limit. And so there are going to be some people who are on the roster right now who will not be on the roster come fall. And there's going to be some movement moving around. And people just have to relax. The team is the team that runs out of the tunnel in Gainesville. Don't get too attached to a lot of the things you see, especially depth chart.
I'm guessing when you talk about the mammoth offensive tackle, it's Markel Bell from Holmes
Yeah,
Community College. Is that who you're talking about?
absolutely. And he
He's
looks huge.
yeah, he's only almost 6'9", 340 pounds.
Right. And I'm hoping he doesn't play a down because that would mean that Miami is good to go with Rivers and good to go with Maigoa. And he gets to develop behind them. And when Rivers leaves next year for the NFL, he'll step right in.
Let's not. Yeah, you mentioned Maui Noah. Both Maui Noah brothers are out for the spring, and they're missing some other guys, a bunch of other guys as well. You talked about Mesidor is going to be able to come back, but missing Nigel Lee Kelly, Armando Blunt, who was a big pickup. He's not out there. Frankie Titelau, Zion Nelson, who's been injured forever, but the fact that Mario even brought him up seems to be a good thing. You're missing Fletcher, you're missing AJ Allen. So there's a bunch of Damari Brown. We talked about the corners. Damari Brown had surgery. He's expected back, though. Cam McCormick, who's been around for 27 years. Brian Ballum. All these guys are out. Josh Horton. So there's a bunch of guys that are injured. So they're going to come back, and then there's going to be a bunch of turnover because there's another portal situation. And so, yeah, like whatever you see right out there in the spring right now, look, the positive stuff you see, great. If there's a guy out there that's not cutting it, guess what? He may not be around. And like you said, there's going to be some people on the roster right now that are not going to make it to fall camp. They're going to, or at least not in Miami. It will be somewhere else. Brandon, let's talk about
Or
the
they're
defense.
not going to be a factor.
Right.
I'm not saying they won't be on the team, but they're going to be in the depth chart.
Yeah. Let's talk about the defense. So strong up front. I am concerned about the linebackers because it's not really that deep of a position. And there's some guys that have to prove themselves there. Safety, that seems like great depth there. That's Lance Guidry's sweet spot. But cornerback, right now, there's only 3 scholarship cornerbacks working in the defensive backfield for the University of Miami, because Damari Brown had surgery. He's out, but he's expected back. So you have Darrell Porter Jr., Jadis Richard, and Demetrius Freeney. That's it for your scholarship cornerbacks right now in the spring. They got to go into the portal and get one.
Yeah, no, they'll probably portal dive for a cornerback. I feel better about linebacker than I do safety. You brought the kid from Washington in, you gave him number 0, so probably he mans one of those spots off of a semifinal team or a final runner-up team in the national championship. And then you're gonna have competition for that second spot. It may go to my high school. Younger high school fellow alum in Jaden. It may go to the freshman, Zaquan Patterson. I don't know. But I feel better about linebacker than I do about safety because you're bringing back your starters. You only played 2. And in most packages, there was, some time last year when they brought in the much maligned at times, from previous years, I can't even think of his name right now. Number 11 made a huge play against Clemson, but he got in the portal and went to, I believe, Missouri. But when you're dealing with replacing him, that's the position that we haven't nailed down yet because nobody really played. But there are so many freshmen who are now rising sophomores who played a lot of special teams. Raul Aguayu, he's one of them from the Atlanta, Georgia area. And when you bring back Kiko and Wesley Bissaint, who were basically the starters at middle and outside linebacker, you feel pretty good about that. Now, you're going to have to replace the position again that you use sparingly, mostly on rundowns. And so that's the position where we really don't know who we're going to see. Is it going to be a Bobby Washington? Is it going to be a Raul Guayu? Is it going to be, a Malik? We don't know. We don't know who's going to fill that spot. So that's a role you have to fill in this defense. But then those safeties, to me, in addition to corner, at corner I feel okay. I like Port on one side and Brown on the other. I don't know who's going to man the slot. And so I'm concerned about that Corey Couch position. And then now I'm also concerned about, who's going to play that other safety spot. And so there's some concern on defense, but I don't think it's that backer. I think it's more so about, that safety spot. That safety spot is big because when you lose two starters at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, now what do? And let me say this before I let you. Not only that, you're bringing in a new defensive, backs coach. And yeah, he and Guidry have coached together before, but he has never coached with this group of kids. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of turnover.
Yeah, we saw Coach Chevis, out there doing his thing the other day. I saw some video of that. You wonder if you wonder how he's acclimating to everything with the University of Miami staff. So spring practice is underway, and I guess just to put a bow on this segment, listen, I'm not going to get caught up in the minutia of personnel changes during spring practice. I can't wait to go. I can't wait to go to a spring game if there's room for me to go, since they're doing it at Cobb Stadium on campus. By the way, I've talked to several people. No one wants to really answer that question as to why it's on campus, but that's neither here nor there. But I can't wait to get out there and see the spring game. I'll make some judgments then. They'll actually be running, game-like situations in pads. I'm not going to take away a lot from them running around in their pajamas the first couple of practices, but to me, bring me to the fall. That's when I can start making some opinions on these things. Am I wrong?
No, you know how I feel about it. This is for the media. This is for the fans. You have to do spring practice, but let me know when we're playing for real. And that's what this is all about. Because it's not like high school spring ball where the recruiting coaches come out and there's a lot to look forward to with like how a person is going to blow up and get scholarships. Like we just want to see who looks good in the weight room and who's been putting in work and maybe who's developed and improved. Outside of that, man, play football. Like wake me up in August. Like I don't have time for this.
By the way, the dude that was the run stopper, Corey Flagg, was number 11. That's who you were looking for.
So now that his name has been properly brought up, who's going to replace him? I think that is a realistic concern because it meant when he didn't play nearly as much as he played in previous years, but he played more impactful to me, at least. And I don't know how you feel about it.
No,
but he had the most impact that I've seen him have last season.
I think that I think Lance Guidry found the right way to use Corey Flagg. And it took advantage of his skill set, which
not an every down guy.
Right. So I think the way they used him was great. And he played more in previous years, but he played his best last year. So that is a big position to fill. There's no doubt about it. All right. We're going to put a little bow on we're going to hit a pause on the football talk for a moment. I gotta talk a little Canes hoops for a second. And we'll do that on the other side. But one of the biggest podcasts that's out there, and three of my favorite dudes, the Orange Bowl boys, they tweeted something that it just didn't hit me right. We're going to have to do that on the other side. We're going to have to get into that a little bit on the other side. Well, you might have a little podcast on podcast war here going on. Okay, not really, but you know what it is. All right, we'll be back after this. It's the Real Ones Canes podcast. And welcome back to the Real Ones Canes podcast. I'm the Beast, Brian Leonard. He is Brandon O'Doy. Go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Brandon on the X at Brandon_O'Doy. You can follow me at Miami Radio Beast. All right. The Orange Bowl boys. I love them. Toast and the crew. Love those guys. Listen to every show. I think they do a great job. But I'll be honest with you. Something did not rub me the right way. It rubbed me the wrong way that they tweeted out. And listen, I know we talked about it last show a little bit. We brought on our boy Liam to discuss Canes basketball. Obviously not a great year for Canes basketball. It wasn't a great night the other night. And so we get that. But this was the tweet. Looks like the coach has on the season as well. Probably time to think about a change in leadership for men's hoops. This season is a fireable offense. And I think it's out of line. Listen, you want to question some decisions that Coach L made? Sure. You want to figure out why they didn't get another big in the transfer portal? Sure. You want to figure out how, they just couldn't make up for any of the offense they lost from Zay Wong and Jordan Miller? Sure. We can definitely criticize. I'm all for it. We can definitely critique, criticize. We do all those things. But you don't fire a guy that took you to the Final Four last year, that took your program to the heights it's never been to a guy that is the best coach in UM basketball history, and that includes Leonard Hamilton. Leonard Hamilton's, took Miami to one Sweet 16 and then left to go to the Washington Wizards and then to Florida State. Jim Larranaga is the best coach in Miami basketball history. If you want to start talking about what's the plan, because, let's be honest, Jim is getting older and you have to think that he's not going to coach another 20 years. So what's the plan? That's a fair question to bring up, but you don't fire a guy that brought your program to the highest of heights just a year ago. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and defend the way they played this year. There wasn't enough depth. There wasn't enough height, and they couldn't make shots. But they also were hella injured. Poplar got injured, Norchad got injured, Nigel Pack got injured, and they lost the last 8 games. They're going to end up finishing the season against Florida State. That's not going to go well. It's definitely a downer. But you do not fire a guy it's not like he took you to a Final Four 10 years ago, and it's been 10-win seasons since then, right? Like, out of the 13 years that Larranaga has been at the University of Miami, they've had 8 20-plus win seasons.
Yeah.
That's unheard of in Miami Hurricanes basketball history. This isn't Kentucky. It's not Duke. It's not North Carolina. It's not UCLA. It's Miami. Pretty good. Have gotten better, but, not at the point where we can start firing a coach because they had an off year.
Yeah. No, I think what the Orange Bowl boys did, they expressed some frustrations, and I get it. When you have a season that goes so badly, and you're thinking, well, why can't we do what FAU did and come back and look just about as good as we were last year? They made the Final Four. They're up the road. They've got a good young coach. Why can't we do something similar? And I've expressed even on this podcast, maybe, Coach L's time, his best days may be behind him, but he's earned the right to go out on his terms. But one thing I think it needs to be said, and I'm not a big basketball guy, but one thing I know, the NIL guys invested a lot in last year's team.
Yep.
And this year's team didn't get the same attention. And you saw the results.
Yep.
I don't think there's that much difference between Coach L. And he's been doing this. I remember when he first started Miami. He started the first year I started covering, 2011. That was his first year, and that was Katie Meyer's first year. They all walked in together. And both of those coaches are legit. They've done the best with what they have. They are really good developers. But this is an NIL game, and you're only going to get kids in basketball for 1, maybe 2 years. And you got to figure out how to win with those guys when you have them. And Miami just didn't have enough. It's just that simple. Mike Krzyzewski could have coached this team, and it wouldn't have done much better. It's not the coach. It's the talent. And in basketball, you got to have guys, and they didn't have enough. And then you weren't healthy.
Just a slight correction, because I don't want our YouTube audience to kill us for mistakes. Katie Meyer started at Miami in 2005, which was well before Coach L.
Okay, so I started in 2011, and I know that was Coach L's first year.
Yes, correct.
And okay, if Meyer had been there further, then okay, fine. But long story short, listen, he needs guys. Go back to the well, go spend the money. And it's far less money to spend because you really only need 3-4 guys. That's it. I think he needs some recruiting help. But if he gets the Boozer twins, I think Miami's back in business.
Yeah, that would be a nice get, right? The Boozer twins would be a really hella nice get. We'll definitely have to dive into some recruiting stuff. In football as well, right? We got Raja Bell's son playing quarterback at Heritage, right? And he looks like Miami's taking a look at him. So we got some recruiting stuff to get into. And I know
I'm counting the days until he commits to Miami. So they'll probably let him do so at the start of this upcoming season.
All right. Well, that's always a good thing.
You heard it here
first. Love that. I love that. All right. So can we we'll figure it. Coach L will figure it out. They do need to go into the portal. They have a good recruiting class coming in, but they need to go get, Florida State has like 3 bigs that are just monumental. Miami needs to get 1. It's unfair to have Norchad Omer be your, he's supposed to make up for the lack of a 7-footer, and that's not going to happen. So, listen.
And he's not a scorer. That's not his game. He's a Dennis Rodman type guy,
Yeah, sure. I do know, because Dennis Rodman, bad boy, no doubt about it. Norchad gets nasty. Not in the same way, but I see where you're going. All right, that'll do it for us. Brandon, we will try to effort. One of us will try to effort to get down to next week. Although it's a crazy week next week, but it always is. At some point, we'll reach out to people we know to get some insight. We'll have some info for you, regardless. So you can definitely look out for that. In the meantime, subscribe to the podcast where you get the podcast. Go check out Kutt, Kutt, a great betting app, and use code BELIEVE, BLEAV, Miami. For Brandon O'Doy, I'm the Beast Brian London. We'll see you when you see it. Peace!